Hey, it's Sam Bear, car guy in chief for Class Winners. And we're here in the workshop today with the 1996 Daihatsu Midget 2. This thing is awesome. It's a cartoon character on wheels. And it's also one of the simplest vehicles made in the mid-90s. It's a 3-cylinder, carbureted, rear-wheel drive, drum brakes. It's about as simple as a first-grade spelling test. But that doesn't mean we have to let it go and not do any maintenance on it. You see, this thing has 11,000 some odd original miles, but it still has its original timing belt. And to really check and make sure how that timing belt is, what its condition, we basically have to strip it down to where it'll take an extra 5 minutes to replace the timing belt. So I decided to spend $100 for a timing belt and a tensioner and just do it. And we'll take you through it because there's always a lot of confusion on timing belts and people get a little freaked out when it's a cab over design and it looks like there's not a lot of room to work. But it's actually really, really, really easy to get to, and I'll show you how. Oh, hey, so this is actually a good time. Go ahead and click down there, that little blue Class Winners icon. That'll let you subscribe and get our Class Winners Seat of the Pants videos and our workshop videos. You'll get notified when there's something new. And as always, comment, like, give us some feedback. If you haven't seen the test review video, the Class Winners Seat of the Pants review that I did for this specific Daihatsu Midget 2, check the link above. It's just such a gas to drive. So you'll want to check out just how cool this thing is. So there it is in all its glory. 659 screaming cc's of overhead cam 3-cylinder carbureted power. And if you look, you can't see the front of the engine. So people go to do timing belts and go, well, how am I supposed to get to that? Well, you don't get to it from under the seat, you get to it from under the car. And that's why having a lift is a great investment. Now that this Midget 2 is up in the air, we can see just how clean this example is. We're talking Catholic First Communion clean. Usually Midget 2s have been used and abused, and they're usually rusted all the way up the body and around the undercarriage. This is awesome. And here we get our first look at the timing cover, the crank pulley, and the water pump pulley. So our timing belt is behind here, and we can actually inspect it through this little plug right here, but it's not going to tell us everything we need to know. So it's best to just take this whole cover off, the pulley with the pulleys, and get onto it and just change it. So our first step is to get the engine set to top dead center. We do that with this mark. And as you can see, there's a little pointer here on the timing cover. And actually, it's already dead nuts on. And the way you do it is just simply by taking a 19 and simply turning it clockwise to get this mark to this mark. That's it. And then we'll be able to check everything else once we get all the rest of this off. Okay, so we need to get this belt off, the alternator belt. And there's a 12mm bolt up here that controls the tension. So we just need to go up here and slacken her off. There we go. Simple, simple, simple. So, you ready for the crank bolt? With the transmission and gear and the handbrake pulled, that'll give us some resistance against this. You've probably heard that crank bolts can be a pain, and they definitely can. I suggest a big impact with a lot of breakaway torque. There are other tricks you can use, and I have used in the past, where you can't get a impact in, such as using a breaker bar and starting it in gear with the breaker bar handle either against the lift arm or against the floor. But in this case, we're hoping it's not going to be that hard. We'll set our impact to be removal, full torque, and see what happens. Again, this is a 19. Piece of cake. Ah, beautiful. No reg Loctite on that one. And you'll see that this is actually keyed. So as long as you have this white dot on the outside and this key in the keyway, it's not going in the wrong way. So we're gonna need to put this to the side and then take off this right here, this pulley. Now remember, this isn't keyed, so it can go on any way, and it doesn't matter for timing purposes, so don't worry if it spins around. After we get the water pump pulley off, there's one last 10mm bolt for the timing cover that we need to get off. And just like that, this should pop off for us. There's a hose in the way, so let's snake everything out here. Okay, there we go. There's our timing belt. Everything looks really nice and clean in here, and the belt is original. You can tell by this white mark down here. They generally don't put those on the aftermarket ones. We definitely could have left this one on here, but since we're already down here, let's just change it. But look how beautifully clean it is. So here's our tensioner. Pulley looks good. All right, we're gonna have to set and make sure that everything is timed correctly. We can now see the timing marks to ensure that everything is where it should be. We have this placing down to here at the notch, and then it's hard to see, but way back up here, there's an F, and the F points to a notch on the side of the timing cover case. Can't really get the camera back up there, but it's right there, and everything is where it's supposed to be. What I like to do is take a paint pen and make it totally foolproof. And what I'll do is I'll go from the notch to the belt, and then I'll do it again. Now let's do it up here too. Of course, now we need to be able to release the tension on the belt itself, so let's take the 14mm socket here and release the tension on the timing belt. That's simple. I've now transferred the paint marks from that old belt to this new one, and we'll fit it back on. Okay, belt's back on. It was a little bit of a struggle both to get off and put back on because it's really tight, which is actually kind of how you want it. When I had it off, I took the opportunity to spin this tensioner bearing, and it spins like it's brand new. So instead of replacing it with an aftermarket one, usually the OEM ones, they're really great quality. So I'm gonna keep that one on there. And you can see the water pump also spins freely. So there's no sense in replacing a high quality OEM one with low miles if you're gonna replace it with some, suspect quality is often the only thing that you can get in the aftermarket. So we're just gonna put it all back together as is. So let's get our 14mm socket here and let's tension up the tensioner bearing. Now, there are specs to do it, but really, this is a fairly tight belt. You don't want to put too much tension on here. I know way too many people who ask me what noise is happening here, and it turns out they've over-tensioned their tensioner bearing. So it puts so much stress on this that it's actually gonna wear out bearings and it's gonna wear out the belt prematurely. Plus, it's gonna create a terrible howling, screeching noise. So if you get a little bit of deflection, that's perfect, not too much, doesn't need to be crazy. That thing's not coming off. Now it's just a question of putting everything back together. And just make sure you get everything in the right orientation. So this all goes back on. And we'll put the cover bolts back on, and then we'll put the pulleys back on. Water pump pulley. And now the crank pulley. Remember, it's keyed. And we've got that white dot. Let's get that in there and drive that on home with our impact. And you want it on there nice and tight. Good amount of ugga-duggas. Now, alternator belt, which looks good, so we can put it back on. And these are cheap, so if it doesn't look good, just replace it. All right, that's it. Now we just need to tension that up. And I'd previously taken off a heat shield, so we're gonna put this one back up. All right, it's out of gear. Let's see if it'll run. See, it sounds pretty good. Oh yeah, 31 raging horsepower. All right, we are definitely done. So we're done. And just remember, if you have a Hi-Jet, since it's the same engine, it'll be very similar. Just follow the steps, do it slowly, it's not a race. All it's left to do now is take it out and enjoy it. And again, if you haven't seen the class winners seat of the pants test drive review of this Midget 2, you gotta check it out. Click above on the link, because it's so much fun. It's more fun than a barrel full of monkeys playing with a barrel full of monkeys. So, I'm Sam Barrett, car guy in chief for Class Winners Collector Vehicles, reminding you to do it yourself because it's fun, it saves you money, and it brings you closer to some pretty awesome vehicles.